My name is Brittany Pettersen. I represent Colorado's 7th congressional district. So it's the suburbs in Jefferson County, Broomfield, and then it goes all the way throughout rural Colorado. So 6 counties through the Southwest. I'm the first woman to represent Colorado's 7th congressional district, which is kind of wild when you think about, how far behind we are as women in so many of these spaces, but also we've made a lot of progress. I'm one of 3 women in Congress who have a toddler age kid. Now I'm pregnant and I'm the 13th voting member who has had a baby while serving. These life experiences that are very important because you're going through it just like other families are. You know how difficult it is to find accessible and affordable childcare. The wait lists, the lack of options. It's more expensive than college. There's not a lot of help out there for families. And so those experiences that are happening now for people that are, need to be a priority at the federal level, having somebody that's going through that now is really important because, so many of the people in Congress have a incredibly outdated perspective. There's a lot of systemic barriers that we face as women to actually being in these leadership positions. These spaces were not made for us. And, when I was in the legislature and I'm pregnant and I had a baby during session, I was the first person to be on leave. And that's where we found that there was actually a law in place that prohibited extended periods of time of being gone unless it was a chronic illness, because they had never even contemplated a woman having to give birth and being away for an extended period of time. And so, leadership had to categorize my absence as a chronic illness so that I could still be paid while on leave taking care of my newborn baby. I'm also very much judged as a woman with young kids for actually being in Congress. And so the way that people, always ask, well, how do you do it with a family? Or assumed that because I had a kid, I was not going to run for Congress anymore. Just the differences with how people see me and my role versus any of my male colleagues. They don't get asked those questions. They're not questioned why they're doing their jobs because they have kids at home. And so there's just such a double standard. We actually had to bring legislation to change the law so that it was reflective of our paid leave policies in Colorado, and that you had up to 3 months that you could be gone while you were still paid as a legislator. I could choose to be gone and still be paid, but your voice is not, your constituents aren't represented for the time that you're gone. And so I've been trying to work alongside my leadership on proxy voting and having those same standards in place for, it's not about pay, it's about making sure that with unique circumstances and, having those parameters for parental leave, that if you're a new parent, that you have that time away and you can still have your vote counted. I'm in a very difficult situation right now because we don't have any proxy voting in place. There's a point at which I'm not going to be able to fly. And so having that flexibility before you give birth and having your vote counted is part of what we need to be working towards in Congress. We've been going back and forth on if we were going to have a baby in Washington, D.C., and I'm going to have to take my toddler out of school to be in an apartment in Washington because of votes that they might need me for. I'm still trying to navigate it, but there are no accommodations. For me, being able to take care of my newborn and heal and recover myself, giving birth is comparable to a very invasive surgery. I mean, you go through a lot. You have to have time off, and you should still be able to have your constituents and your voice represented. When I think about Pat Schroeder, the first woman to be elected to Congress from Colorado, when she was on armed services, they didn't even have a chair for her. She had to share a chair with her male colleague. They didn't have a bathroom for women until Speaker Boehner was there. I mean, that was not that long ago. Ideally is that we change these systems with seeing these barriers and that we can kind of forge the way so that it's easier for the people who are coming behind us. My grandma, such a strong woman who always asked me where I was going to go to school, just really tried to instill the importance of an education. My mom struggled with an opioid addiction. It started out with prescription drugs that led to heroin. So you can imagine, what my childhood looked like. And I think it's the strong women in my life that stepped in and kind of filled in those voids. My biggest triumph is not going down the path of, what I saw growing up and overcoming my circumstances. And I'm grateful for that every day. But in my career, I'm constantly underestimated. Even still, I'm 42 now, so it's better than it was when I was first elected. Everybody assumed I was Representative Pettersen's aide. When I'd go to meetings with lobbyists, they would talk to my aide, who was a male, instead of me, who was the representative. I mean, even as an elected official, that they're choosing to talk to the male who was working for me and not me as the elected official. So I think it's, how effective I was in my role, working across the aisle, building those relationships, actually getting some really big things done, taking my experience with my mom and really changing systems so that people like her aren't left behind and are given a chance to actually live in recovery and thrive. So those were some of my biggest accomplishments in the legislature. In Congress, I think it's, like I said, now being 42, and being a member of Congress, I feel like I don't deal with the being underestimated as much, but it's still always there. Even in campaigns against me, the ads that are take a stereotype of being a dumb blonde, whether that's, all throughout my career from the very beginning. So overcoming those stereotypes and showing up as the professional that I am. Nobody is going to ever tell you that it's your turn. I faced so much backlash for even thinking that I should run from the very beginning to running for Congress. I ended up winning by almost 10 points in one of the most competitive races in the state, in a race where, I was a guaranteed loss because of being underestimated. And when I stepped up to run for Congress, definitely upset a lot of people who thought that it was not my turn. It is about stepping into these roles, doing it for the right reasons, doing the work necessary to make it across the finish line, and remembering that you have to push that aside because nobody's gonna ever clear a path for you. A lot of women don't support other women, and that's a huge issue. And one of the greatest things about being in this Congress, our leadership, Catherine Clark, who is our whip, she is so supportive, not just me as a mom, but trying to create paths and opportunities for women. What we can do to see that in each other, to lift each other up, to ask each other to step up, to be there knowing that, you're gonna face significant obstacles because you can guarantee that there are 5 men already lined up thinking that they should be in that role, and to have the courage to step up, but also the support system to get you there.